Bread was once sacred. Today, it is silent sabotage. Every morning, millions tear open a plastic bag stamped with comforting words, fresh, enriched, healthy. But beneath the softness, beneath the sweetness, something is missing, something vital. This video is not about nostalgia. It is about a historical lie and what the Vikings of Scandinavia knew about bread that we forgot. Men who crossed the North Atlantic without modern medicine, who survived winters that erased villages, who built bodies so resilient their bones still astonish archaeologists today. And they did it while eating bread. If you want to understand how bread went from fuel for survival to a weapon against the body, stay with me until the end, because the answer is buried in fire, stone, and grain. Modern bread is an illusion, carefully engineered to look harmless, white, soft, comforting. It yields at the slightest touch, collapses between two fingers, melts on the tongue. Everything about it signals safety, familiarity, warmth. But what you don't see is what matters most: absence. The grain's outer layers, where fiber lives, are stripped away. The germ, rich with nutrients meant to sustain human life, is removed. What remains is starch refined into near purity, a substance your body processes not as food, but as fast-burning fuel. To this emptiness, modern industry adds sugar, not to nourish, but to hook. A quiet sweetness accelerates craving and repeat consumption. Then comes industrial yeast, designed for one goal alone: speed. Dough that once relied on time, microbes, and patience is now forced to rise in minutes, not hours. The result is bread that looks alive, but is biologically hollow. Behind the scenes are enzymes, preservatives, and dough conditioners, chemical tools that ensure uniformity, long shelf life, and profit. Bread no longer spoils quickly because it no longer truly lives. This isn't bread. It's shelf-stable obedience, food reshaped to fit machines, logistics, and quarterly reports. By the early 20th century, bakeries stopped nourishing bodies and began feeding supply chains. Grain became an industrial input. Bread became cheap, fast, and forgettable, something swallowed between tasks rather than respected as sustenance. But long before convenience ruled the human diet, bread was never trivial. It was dangerous to make, labor-intensive, dependent on weather, harvest, and fire. And because survival hung in the balance, bread had to strengthen the body that ate it. Nowhere was this truth more brutally understood than in Viking Age Scandinavia. In a world of freezing winds, famine-thin margins, and constant physical demand, bread could not afford to make you weak. Because weakness, in their world, was not an inconvenience. It was a death sentence. Between the 8th and 11th centuries, across the harsh northern lands we now call Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Iceland, bread was not a convenience food. It was survival, stripped down to its most honest form. In a world without safety nets, refrigeration, or endless supply, every mouthful had to justify the energy it cost to produce. In Viking settlements like Birka, a major trading hub on what is now Björkö Island in Sweden, along the contested waterways of Kattegat, and in Jorvik, the Norse-controlled city that would later become York, bread was made close to the hearth, the center of life itself. There were no bakeries, no specialists, no guaranteed abundance. Bread was baked on hot stones, in clay ovens, or directly beside open flame, where a single mistake could waste days of labor. There were no factories, no white flour, no shortcuts. Archaeological finds, charred loaves, grinding stones, and worn querns tell a clear story. Viking bread was made from whole grains, crushed slowly by hand or with stone tools. The bran remained intact. The germ was not removed. What modern bread discards as inefficiency, Viking bread preserved as necessity. Fiber stayed, minerals stayed, sustained energy stayed. Crucially, bread was not consumed mindlessly. It was eaten sparingly and deliberately, often alongside fish, rendered animal fat, dried meat, or fermented dairy like skyr. This combination slowed digestion, stabilized blood sugar, and allowed the body to extract maximum value from every bite. And this matters more than it seems. Because bread itself was never the enemy of human health. It was never the villain. The difference between resilience and frailty, between strength and sickness, lay entirely in how the bread was made. Yet even that is only part of the story. Because beneath the hearth fires and stone querns, the true secret of Viking bread lay deeper still, in the very grains they chose to grow and eat. The Vikings did not eat modern wheat. And that single fact changes everything we think we know about bread. Across excavated sites in Scandinavia, from rural farmsteads in Norway's river valleys to trading centers like Birka and burial grounds in Denmark, archaeologists consistently find traces of grains that bear little resemblance to what fills modern fields. Viking diets were built on barley, rye, oats, and ancient wheat varieties such as emmer. These were not grains optimized for convenience or profit. They were grains shaped by climate, patience, and necessity. They grew slowly. They tolerated brutal cold. They resisted overprocessing simply because overprocessing didn't exist. Barley was dense and dependable, rich in fiber and minerals, capable of sustaining warriors through long campaigns and harsh winters. Rye thrived where other crops failed, providing stable energy during Scandinavia's darkest months, when hunger hunted as mercilessly as any enemy. Oats, resilient and versatile, fueled both farmers and sailors, men who rowed day after day across freezing waters. Modern wheat tells a different story. Centuries later, as agriculture industrialized, wheat was redesigned. Selective breeding increased yield and speed, not health. Gluten levels rose to create elastic dough ideal for factories. Fiber decreased to improve shelf life and texture. What remained was a grain efficient for machines, but increasingly hostile to the human gut. This shift was not accidental. It was progress measured in calories, not biology. In profit, not resilience. And yet, even the right grain can betray the body. Because barley, rye, and emmer are still grains, and grains contain compounds that, unprepared, can block nutrients and strain digestion. The Vikings understood this instinctively, even if they lacked modern terminology. Grain alone does not explain their advantage. The true difference lay in what they did after the grain was crushed. And that brings us to fermentation, the most overlooked, misunderstood weapon in the entire history of human nutrition. Modern bread hits the bloodstream like a hammer. One bite and sugar surges. Insulin floods. Energy spikes for a brief moment, then crashes just as quickly. It's a silent assault, repeated with every meal, every snack, every convenient bite. Over time, this cycle leaves bodies sluggish, inflamed, and trapped in a rhythm of false energy. Viking bread operated on a completely different biological logic. Made from whole grains, barley, rye, oats, and emmer, it digested slowly. The fiber within these grains forced the body to work, to extract energy gradually rather than being overwhelmed by a sudden sugar spike. Blood sugar rose incrementally, stabilizing at levels that sustained hours of physical exertion. This was not theory, it was physiology in action. A Viking man rowing across the turbulent North Sea, hauling a long ship full of warriors, or working frozen soil near Uppsala during planting season relied on steady energy. Their bodies were not designed to handle the roller coaster spikes modern bread induces. They required endurance, not short-lived bursts that left the body craving more. Their bread was more than food. It was fuel for labor, for survival, and for violence. Each bite delivered lasting power, allowing a warrior to maintain strength in battle, a farmer to toil until sundown, and a sailor to brave storms without collapse. Yet fiber alone did not guarantee this advantage. Grains contain phytic acid, a naturally occurring compound that binds minerals and can impair digestion if left untreated. Modern eaters are still vulnerable to these hidden compounds, often without realizing the consequences. The Vikings had discovered a solution, long before modern science could explain it. They transformed bread from a potential irritant into a powerhouse of nutrition, unlocking energy that was slow, steady, and reliable. But the secret ingredient wasn't the grain itself. It was time, patience, and the quiet science of fermentation, a forgotten technique that would define the difference between strength and sickness. The Vikings fermented their bread, but not because it was trendy or a culinary flourish. They did it because it worked. Across Scandinavia's fjords, forests, and farmlands, archaeologists have found evidence of bread that underwent wild fermentation, the early ancestor of modern sourdough. This was not a casual process. Dough was left to rest, sometimes overnight, exposed to naturally occurring yeasts and bacteria in the air. The result was a living food, transformed by time and microbial activity into something far more than simple sustenance. Fermentation did something extraordinary. It broke down phytic acid, a compound present in grains that binds vital minerals and prevents the body from absorbing them. The Vikings were unknowingly conducting nutritional alchemy. Iron, which supports blood and oxygen transport, became bioavailable. Zinc, essential for immunity and healing, was unlocked. Magnesium, critical for muscle function and nerve signaling, was released. Even gluten, often blamed for digestive woes, was softened, making bread gentler on the stomach than modern fast-baked loaves. In short, fermentation turned grains from a potential irritant into a biological ally. Bread became fuel that worked in harmony with the body, rather than against it. Modern bread rarely undergoes this transformative process. Speed has replaced patience. Dough that once rested a full day, nurturing beneficial microbes, now rises in an hour or less under industrial conditions. Nutrients remain locked away, fibers partially broken, and gluten often intensified. What was once nourishing and easy to digest has become inflammatory for millions. But fermentation alone does not explain the Viking advantage. Diet is always part of a larger story. Bread behaves differently depending on the body that eats it, and no one lived more physically than the Norse. Rowing longships across icy seas, hauling timber, plowing frozen fields, fighting raids, these bodies demanded fuel that could keep pace, and fermented Viking bread delivered quietly, efficiently, and powerfully. The secret was not just in the grain, not just in the fiber, it was in time itself. Patience, respected as survival, made all the difference. Irritation, inflammation, brain fog, weight gain. These are the silent hallmarks of modern bread, symptoms few pause to connect to the simple loaves on their kitchen shelves. Modern bread overwhelms digestion in ways Viking bread never could. Refined carbohydrates enter the bloodstream almost instantly, triggering insulin spikes that the body struggles to regulate. Industrial yeast, designed for speed rather than nourishment, disrupts the delicate balance of microbes in the gut. Preservatives, additives, and chemical conditioners used to extend shelf life confuse the immune system, prompting low-level inflammation that accumulates over years. The result? A body that treats bread not as sustenance, but as an intruder. Energy crashes, cravings intensify, and the gut becomes a battleground rather than a digestive ally. The Vikings faced the opposite relationship. They did not adapt to bread. Bread adapted to them. Through slow fermentation, whole grains, and a lifestyle of relentless physical activity, their diet worked with their biology. Modern bread demands the opposite. It forces our biology to adapt, or fail. And therein lies the quiet scandal of contemporary nutrition. Food, something designed to sustain life, now controls it. Bread, once a source of strength, has become a subtle agent of weakness. But this is not a story of condemnation. It is a story of reclamation. The wisdom embedded in Viking bread, slow preparation, whole grains, fermentation, intentional eating, remains accessible. It is a blueprint for how modern humans can reclaim control over their bodies, using knowledge lost to centuries of industrial convenience. The question is not whether bread can be healthy. It is whether we are willing to let it be. The lessons of Viking bread are not about extremes, trends, or strict rules. They are about respect. Respect for the body. Respect for process. Respect for limits. In the past, bread was life or death. Today, it can still be a source of strength, if approached wisely. Start with frequency. Bread was never eaten at every meal. The Vikings consumed it intentionally, as part of a larger diet that included fish, meat, and dairy. Modern humans can learn from this. Bread should fuel your day, not dominate it. Eat it less often, but make every bite count. Choose stone-ground grains over refined flour. These retain the bran, germ, and fiber that support digestion, stabilize blood sugar, and provide lasting energy. Prefer sourdough or naturally fermented breads, which harness time and microbes to unlock minerals, reduce potential irritants, and make bread truly digestible. Pair it with fats and protein, just as the Vikings did, with fish, cheese, or animal fat. This combination balances energy release and keeps your body functioning optimally. Let time work for you, not against you. Bread that rises slowly, ferments naturally, and is prepared with care is more than food. It's a form of biochemical harmony. Modern bread races against time, sacrificing nutrition for speed. Viking bread respected time, and in that patience, it became a tool of survival. Bread once built men capable of shaping history. Rowers, raiders, farmers, and warriors who carved empires from fjords and forests. And though the world has changed dramatically, the human body has not. The lessons embedded in Viking bread remain timeless. By choosing wisely, respecting preparation, and eating intentionally, we can reclaim a lost connection to food that truly fuels strength and resilience. The Vikings did not worship bread. They understood it. They knew food could either harden the body or soften it. Today, bread promises comfort. But history reminds us, comfort was never the point. Strength was. If this story changed how you see food, history, or the quiet betrayals hidden in everyday life, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss what comes next. And on your screen right now is another journey into the darker truths of history. Click it and keep watching, because the past is never finished with us.